We talked a little bit about the show, the result of the show, your thoughts on that. What was the training like leading up to the show? I looked at one of your stories afterwards, and you talk about how you train
A
six
lot.
days a week, two to
Yeah,
three hours per day. The people are going to be listening to like, whoa, no way.
yeah,
Yes, way.
yeah.
That's how this man built the physique, right? So, can you dive into that for the listeners? Yeah, just leading up to the contest. So, when you started dieting and then that training, how that kind of evolved throughout that process.
Yeah. So I started dieting in March with the plans of doing the Monster Mash first and then Worlds after. So I typically try to aim for about 30 weeks of dieting just because I like to take my time. I don't like to drop weight quickly or anything like that. My training's honestly ridiculous. I typically go with intuitive feel. Like I don't write my programs down or anything. I just know on Mondays, I typically train chest, shoulders, hamstrings, glutes. I hit a little bit of tricep, but nothing too crazy. I try to stay away from hitting arms. It's just it's
That's so
honestly
hard
just
to that's so hard to believe. It's
it's
crazy.
so stupid at this point. Like I just yeah, man, I try to just stay away from it. If I do have a crazy arm session, it's probably like once a month where I dedicate one day. But typically I'll take Tuesdays off. Wednesdays I'll hit quads, a little bit of upper chest, triceps, obviously throw in calves in there, but nobody likes to train calves.
Yeah.
Thursdays, then I'll go into back, biceps, just something light. I'll do hamstrings again with glutes. And Friday, it's literally leg day every day. Like so I hit one part of the leg every 48 hours, and then I just kind of do the bro split, if you will. So I hit one body part per day,
But you hit body parts. I think I have it pulled up here. Let me
twice
let
a
me
week,
pull it up for the twice a week. And certain ones I think you wrote down even three
even
times,
three
right?
times.
Like
Yes.
is that the chest you hit three times or is it the
Yeah. So the lag and body parts, I'll hit 3 times a week, and that changes year to year. So this upcoming year, it's actually going to be hamstrings that I'm going to hit
hmm.
more frequently with more intensity because I want my legs to be ridiculous. So
Okay.
uh,
Do you feel like do you feel like that's relative to your physique, that that's an area that you want to bring up essentially out of
that is
everything?
definitely an area I want to bring up along with my shoulders. I want to get them as wide as my tricep because
Hmm.
genetically I was just born with triceps that pop. So I want my shoulders to match that with. Aside from that, everything else is par for the course.
Yeah, yeah. Here for I already know people are going to be curious about this and maybe they missed your stories, okay? I'm going to read it out because I have it saved here. I did
Yeah,
this
yeah.
on purpose. And you wrote Monday, chest, hamstrings, and glutes. Tuesday off. Wednesday, quads. Tuesday, back, biceps, hams, and glutes.
Yeah.
Friday, shoulders, chest, triceps, and quads. Saturday, back, hamstring, glutes. Sunday, quads. Now, y'all are going to be confused. Go listen to that 4 or 5 times in a row because I was reading it. I'm like, damn, what's this guy hitting how many times a week? So just go listen to that like 3, 4 times in a row and write it down, and then you can study that. All right. But
Yeah,
again, this is specific to
to
you,
me,
and
yeah,
that's very important that
100%.
people know. I'm just kind of joking around a little bit when I say go study it, but people are fascinated by how guys like yourself are doing things, and I'm curious myself too. I always like to know when we're talking next level physiques, genetics to the side for a moment. How are
Mhm.
you doing things? Because it's no secret that you're putting in that work. Like whether
Yeah,
it's you're taking sets all the way to the maximum failure, we're talking like failure all the time. No, you don't do
no, I
that,
don't
bro.
do that.
You
I don't
don't
do
do
that.
that, but you're doing it in a different way. You're putting in the time. You're putting in 2 to 3 hour sessions. Like we're talking like some Serge Nubret, Arnold Schwarzenegger type. Like you're in the gym and you're doing it, right? So talk about this though. You enjoy lifting?
Oh, I love it. Yeah,
There you go. And
absolutely.
yeah, and you have to, if you're going to be in the gym that much, you have to, I would assume you'd have to love it to a degree, or then it's just like slavery at that point if you don't love it, right?
Yeah, it's almost honestly, and I've taught myself doing this often. So I'll lift for 2 hours and then I'll just stay an extra hour just tweaking things. I'll
Mm.
start doing leg extensions on non-leg days, and I'm like, oh, if I turn my foot slightly, what does that hit? If I turn it the other way, what does it hit? If I elevate my heels, if I do this, dude, I call that my experimental time. And then I'll
Mm.
try whatever I figure out works for me the next time I hit legs. And I'll either take the exercise or drop it. So I spend a
Ooh.
ridiculous amount of time just experimenting on angles and things. And a lot of the guys that I train or train with me, they just kind of leave and let me do my thing because it's at that they think it's a waste. For me, it's like Nobody's doing this. I want to hit this body part specifically. How do I do that?
I like
And
that. That's study
yeah,
time, lab
it
time.
is. It is. Yeah. And it's experimental because it's my body. One, I'm feeling it. I'm getting the feedback right away. So I know if it's going to work or it's not going to work. Now, whether it works under a load, that's different because it gets a little intense when I get into my own head. I'm like, oh, that was just 135. What does it feel like with 225 now? And, you can kind of go too far with it. But yeah, man, I take my time. I study the movements. I study how it works for my body, and I just adopt it from there.
No, that's brilliant. And I think there's value to extract there for those tuning in. If you want to take your physique to the next level, okay, you can do your training session like you said. You finish your training and then you do lab time afterwards, correct?
Correct. Yep. Super
Yeah.
light. Sometimes it's just body weight movements on a machine. So if they get the movement pattern and then change angles and whatever works for me, I take that and adopt it. But yeah, it usually takes about an hour because I typically do like 5 different movements for specifically weak body parts. And it's worked so far in 15 years. So I guess it's going well.
Yeah, yeah. And the actual sessions themselves, they take what about like 2 hours, I would
About
have to
two
guess?
hours, yeah. two
Yeah.
hours, 2.5. Leg days are always long. Always long. I think the longest leg day I had was 4 hours, and it was just I was possessed that day, but I blame
You
Brian for
Brian DaCosta?
that. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. I was literally just going to bring the man up because I was going to say, you're talking about world championship level physiques. You're putting in the work, man. I'm sorry. There's no way around it. Like, I think on one end of the spectrum or the other, like, you don't like to train all the way to failure, but you're putting in the time a different way. And there's people that will put in, like, they'll go everything to failure, every set, but then they're reducing their frequency to accommodate for
Yeah.
that. So let me ask you this. Why don't you train to failure? That's a good question, actually, because maybe there's someone curious
My
about that.
recovery always takes a hit.
Okay.
And to gauge failure, it's different for everybody. I've seen people train till they literally can't do another rep on a machine, and then they take 3 days and go back to the machine. And hey, if recovery is that crazy for you and you have 3 days that you don't want to be in the gym, awesome. I like being in the gym all the time. So
Mm.
I'd rather hit, maybe 2 to 3 reps shy of failure, still get the work in, and I'm there every other day working on whatever else I have to work on. I can't stand the feeling of just limping and not being able to walk as holding it as a trophy, like if you did something amazing. To me, that's not, I don't know, it's not ideal. It doesn't work for me. I know a lot of people that do it. I know a lot of people that love it and they love that feedback. I don't. I think it's ridiculous, honestly. I just,
No, great perspective, man. Like it's gonna have some people thinking for sure. With regards to progression, let's talk about that a little bit
Mhm.
because you were mentioning like once you start adding load to some of these experimental movements, you'll pick out
Yep,
from your lab time. It kind of gets like, when I start loading it, maybe it doesn't feel as good or I thought as good as I
exactly.
thought it would, right? So maybe you want to give an example
Mhm.
and also how you gauge progression with your sessions specifically.
In terms of progression, I don't write my numbers. I don't care about the weight that I'm pushing or anything like that. I literally go off feel. I've always gone, how does my body feel and how do I look a month? I take a ton of pictures. I take a ton of videos. A lot of it I don't post. I just keep for myself so I can see how my body's changing. But typically on those exercises that I do where I progress and I load weight and it feels uncomfortable or my body just kind of doesn't react the way I want it to, I'll use that as a supplemental exercise on a superset. So say, for instance, like I just recently posted like a hamstring workout or superset that not that I came up with, but something that works for me. It's an RDL, but it's on the back
45
extension
degree.
machine.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, the
yeah. I
back
saw you.
extension
I
machine.
saw
Yeah.
that. Yeah, yeah.
So I'll do that weighted. I'll go up to say 200 pounds is the most I've ever done, but typically I stay around 135. So once I finish that, I jump right into basically the same type of movement, but then I'm pushing my knees under the pad as I'm coming down. For
So
those
you're
visually
changing
who
the
want,
technique. The technique's changing.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. So I
yeah.
drop the weight and I just come up and I try to slide my knees under the pad, which forces my hamstrings to contract. And I'm like, wow, this feels amazing. Combine the two movements, but if I do it under load, I physically can't. So I'm not going to pick up a dumbbell, bring it over, and then go under the pad.
It's not
So
practical.
it's not at all. But combined, it works amazing. My hamstrings feel like I'm Jay Cutler or Phil Heath. But yeah, man, it's those type of things that I just combine exercises that I feel would benefit the body part that I'm trying to target. Upper chest, I do the same thing. I'll do incline bench press and then combine it with 100 push-ups or dumbbell flies. It changes every week. It's just whatever my body feels that day.
High reps, that's something you are more leaning towards?
I'm a high rep guy, but I never pass 15.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
I'll
then
just
you raise the weight. You'll load it heavier next
correct.
time. Okay.
Correct. Yeah. If I can get 15 reps nice and easy, I'll load 10 pounds. If I can get 15 reps nice and easy, 10 pounds again. And I'll just keep doing
Okay.
that until I get 12. If I can get 12, then I'll stay there until I can get 15.
And still avoiding failure. So for those who are tuning in and we're like, wait a second, this guy said he doesn't track his lifts. He knows what he does. You know what you do. You know what you did a
Yeah.
while back, when you did chest last time with this exercise. You have an
Everyone does.
idea.
Everyone
Everyone
does.
does. Come on, let's be serious. We all have it recorded in our mind what we had done. Okay, for some people who have very bad memory, then you might want to jot a note down if you really care about it like that. But even if you're kind of around that same amount, then you'll
Yep.
know, right? You'll know if you
Exactly.
surpass it and you're getting 15, 20 reps and you don't want to do that, then you'll raise it next time.
And you'll know within the first two sets. Honestly, if you're used to back squatting 315 for eight, at 225, if you can only get eight, you know you're not going to get 315 for eight. So you know
Ah,
that something's happening with fatigue, or you got to, and I only do this on the prime movements. So I'll deadlift, back squats, hack squats, like my compound movements that I know are the meat and potatoes of my workout. In terms of like lunges or things like that, I'll do failure there where I physically can't do it anymore. But I recover from those type of movements fairly quickly. Yeah, those compound movements, man, to failure are brutal. They
for sure.
annihilate your joints. At least for me, I'm an older guy, so it's like, no,
No, it's understandable, especially with the amount of volume you're probably doing too, and that you enjoy doing, right?
correct. Yeah.
And when you talk about, we'll go back for a second because with the progression thing. So in the middle of an exercise, you're doing an exercise. You did your
Hmm.
first set that you would normally do. Maybe a while back you got 12 or 13 reps, but then you're like,
Yeah.
man, 15 is easy. Well, hey, you're not stopping there. You're doing another set. You're going to load a little heavier that day potentially, or you
Yeah.
wait till next time, depending
No,
on the
I
volume.
load it up. I
Yeah.
honestly sometimes I lift like an idiot. So if I get my 15, say 315 back squat and I get my 15, dude, there's been times I've gone to 405, done my 10, and then I'm like, ooh, I feel good today. Let's go to
Mm,
585. Like I'm a human being and I'm an eagle lifter sometimes. Like when I want to lift heavy, I'll lift heavy. But my thing is that I don't hold myself to a program. I don't hold myself to, well, program says 4 sets of 15. I got to stop here.
mm.
If I feel amazing, I'm going to keep going. I don't care.
You're not a slave to the structural rut that many find themselves in.
Oh yeah, I don't stick to any program. And honestly, even with my clients, if they're progressing pretty well, because some people's strength skyrockets, some other people just kind of, slowly taper up. But if they skyrocket and I see that this is a good day, they ate well and they're good, we're going up.
Yeah,
And as long as the form is not compromised, listen, I pull out the phone, we're recording this, we're checking that box off. You wanted to squat 405, you're going to get it today.
nice. That's it right there. Championship mentality.
Yeah.
Right? So, do you normally train alone, Oscar, or do you always have someone that you train with?
I've, for the most part, I've always had someone. It started off me training with my best friend. Then I started training with my brother, who lost 65 pounds, which is kind of cool. Now he's
Wow.
training on his own, doing his own thing. And then I started training with one of my other friends who decided to join. It's always somebody, like somebody, naturally just, hey, man, can you spot me here? And then it just kind of builds into a friendship and we train
Nice.
together.
Yeah, that camaraderie is nice too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Always, always.
for sure. Are you the type of person though when you're training, you don't want no distractions? No, do you listen to music? Like, how do you like to do things? What's your thing?
I listen to motivational speeches actually.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so I have that just kind of playing in the background. And then I get into my intense zone. For the most part, people don't talk to me because I always have a hat on, kind of low, have that hoodie over. I like to focus on what I'm doing. The gym is not work to me, but at the same time, I feel like if I'm there, I'm going to respect the weights and I'm going to respect what I'm doing because I know what the goal is for me. And I don't want to jeopardize that by just having a conversation for 45 minutes about absolutely nothing that's going to benefit my life.
No
So
doubt.
I go in, get out, come home, and that's it. you.